Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what happened today and what we can expect moving into the final 2 days of the week as we start off December on a pretty damn good note for the most part across the market. So yeah, all that being said and done, I'll give you my thoughts. If you enjoy my analysis, etc., don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you do enjoy my analysis, I do share these kind of updates every single day. The market is open in my YouTube membership section. Every day, the market is open again, live, pretty much as it's happening, as I see it, as the market is trading, etc. Every single day for just $3 a month, right? I made it very cheap. It's mainly just to, keep hopefully very annoying trolls out of the way. Hopefully it's a place for people that actually want to either learn or really just maybe even contribute, right? But yeah, that's there. Link is below. $5 a month instead, though, gives you access to everything I just said, plus NVIDIA daily updates as well, if you're interested in that. But jumping into a Tesla closing the day with a pretty respectable 2% day, which compared to the market, you can argue is a bit of an underperformance actually. QQQ up a pretty whopping 1.23%, which is very respectable. So Tesla, you can definitely make a bit of an argument that it did underperform slightly, because the QQQ being up 1.2%, Tesla should be up like almost 2.5% really. But nonetheless, still a pretty decent close on Tesla, pretty nice close that is setting up what could be, I say the word could here, nothing's confirmed yet, but what could be a potentially pretty explosive rally moving forward, again, to 385 in my opinion at least. So with that being said, what does it all look like, right? So let's remove all these for now, right? Pretty simply put, again, the main thing to look at has been and will continue being this rising triangle. We are on this rising triangle where we're setting pretty much equal highs, in resistance areas while setting higher lows. That is a rising triangle pattern. It's one of my personal, again, favorite patterns. I think this pattern is very, very powerful and usually quite effective, really. So I like this pattern. I like the fact that Tesla's setting up with this. But again, like every pattern, even though this is a bullish pattern, nothing is perfect, and there is absolutely still a chance that this falls apart. Now, I definitely think the bulls have, the upper hand here. I think that goes without saying, especially considering after the news dropped, a couple of days ago about Elon getting his compensation package revoked once again by that Delaware judge. Despite that, Tesla didn't drop that much. It only dropped back only into like this 348 to 50-ish support region, and it actually held. The fact that that kind of news only brought it down this much, in my opinion, is actually not a bad sign, right? It makes you really wonder, like, what can really stop this momentum? What can really come out and just like really essentially make this pattern fall apart, right? And in my opinion, if that wasn't able to do it, then something pretty massive would have to happen for that to, occur essentially, or just, I don't know, something would have to happen. I don't know what it could be, but the fact that it hasn't, and the fact that that news wasn't enough to even get it down to the bottom of this trend line, I thought at the very least it'll come down to the bottom of this trend line, around 342, let's say roughly. The fact that it even couldn't do that is a good sign for the bulls, in my opinion. Now, again, nothing is perfect. There's no still confirmation, but essentially, as long as Tesla holds, and pretty much if we start seeing a breakout intraday really above 363, but even just a closure, above like 360, even like a daily closure above 360 is good, but an intraday break of above 363 is pretty damn good as well. If any of those two things happen, Tesla looks like it's ready to explode. Now, the one thing I'm hoping that doesn't happen is that it does it in a gap up overnight, right? Tesla likes to do that sometimes, where it gaps up or down. In this case, it'll be an up gap overnight, and then you kind of just get past this, what is obviously a pretty decent resistance area. Then it becomes a little bit more of a difficult, trade to enter, I guess you can say. But nonetheless, we'll see how it plays out. Again, nothing is perfect. We still can move back down, like I said, to, closer to 340, 342, something like that. That is still in the cards until we, get that confirmed breakout. There is still a chance we do make our way back down. Like, I want to make that very, very clear. And I'll bring up the market. I'm going to go over the broader market today as well, very, very briefly. But again, just make it very, very clear. The easiest way of looking at it, rising triangle, bullish setup. The bulls have the advantage. I think the bulls, should, in theory, win this little battle, if you will, that's happening over here. And I think if the bulls win, we should see at the very least 385, maybe even closer to 400 by the end of the month. I think that becomes a very real possibility. However, it is not guaranteed, and it's not confirmed yet, and we still could see a pullback, and we could actually still indeed see this pattern fall apart and make our way, decently lower, let's just say, right? So again, nothing is confirmed, but the bulls have the upper hand. If I had to put a percentage on it, I think the bulls have about a 70 to 75% chance upper hand, but there's still enough meat on the bone for the bears where I'm not ready to call this a decisive victory just yet. So I want to make that very, very clear and understandable, because again, going into some of the potential more cautious signs, if you will, MACD is still bearish. Despite these moves up, MACD is still bearish. Stochastic is still bearish. In fact, it's arguably getting a bit of a retest, almost as if on the bearish breakdown. Now, if we get this crossed back up, and if the MACD on the daily crosses back up, it's a bit of a different story. Okay, now we're talking. But again, despite the bulls having the upper hand, there are still some signs of concern where, it's good to have some caution here, because we are still playing at pretty elevated areas, right? We are still playing all the way up here, from these massive rallies. Right now, this is obviously a nice little potential correction here, and this is arguably a continuation pattern setting up, which is obviously, again, like I said, is overall still bullish despite those potential caution signs. Again, it's good to look at both sides. It's good to look at both sides because Tesla likes to fake out people, whether it's bears or bulls. Pretty often, it is a very, very good stock at doing that. So, and I've learned that many ways, sometimes the hard way, unfortunately. Another way of looking at it is this green cloud, right? This green cloud, Tesla has been holding it pretty damn well, right? Pretty damn well, and is continuing to hold it pretty respectably as well. So as long as it continues holding this green cloud, the short-term momentum should be still intact. But again, losing this green cloud and essentially dropping, in my opinion, really below 340 starts putting a bit of that, thesis into question. And, I definitely think we can start looking for a pretty decent drop well back down into the 3 teens. And as long as that holds, there's still a bullish thesis to be, talked about. But it definitely becomes a little bit more eyebrow raising and a little bit skeptical, to where I think ultimately there's a pretty damn good chance we ultimately make our way back down to 285 to as low as even the 260s. Again, that's another story for another time. Maybe that's not even a story we'll have to even talk about, anytime soon, right? I just want to make that clear. I'm just bringing these up as of always look at both sides. I always like to look at both sides. Even though I think the bulls have the upper hand here, I always like to take a look at the bearish side or the potential bearish side, because especially again with a stock like Tesla, you really just never know. You always want to be careful, because all it takes is one big mistake. Congratulations, you're out of the game. You lose. GG, game over, right? So anyway, that's kind of my general consensus, if you will, on Tesla stock. Bulls have the upper hand. Let's see a continuation. Let's see a break. Let's see move forward. I wanted to talk about the market very quickly. Actually, before that, one more thing. I got to bring out my favorite indicator, right? I'll remove everything else for now. Again, my favorite indicator, honestly, I feel like I can pretty much trade just solely off this indicator alone. I can probably remove literally everything else, MACD, market bias, I can remove probably everything and only use these bands. And that alone probably could be enough for me to trade off of. Now, the good news is the fact that the daily chart, again, like I said yesterday, and that kind of remains to be today, we have exited overbought territories on the bands with this kind of sideways really consolidation and correction that we are currently experiencing on Tesla. That's a good sign. That actually is a good sign, because if there is more room to run up, like I said, we can pretty much, essentially more or less go back into overbought territories on the daily, which would again yield 385 to, in my opinion, as high as 400, which then of course would put us well back into the extreme levels of being overbought on the bands once again. So this kind of leaves room open to the upside on the daily chart, which is a good sign for the bulls, right? It means that the upside move has potential, and it wouldn't be just something really completely just crazy and just unthinkable. No, it becomes pretty realistic, in fact, right? That's a good sign. I like to see that. Now, obviously, the weekly is a bit of a different story, but even the weekly still is now, after this sideways consolidation, even though it is still very, very overbought, there is actually still some room to the upside. So, for instance, if we go to 385 to about closer to 400, the weekly will now once again also get to the super extreme, like very, very extreme overbought territory as well. But again, the point here is the fact that yes, it's frothy. Yes, it's very, very elevated on the weekly. And yes, it is, in my opinion, it is a high risk play, right? It is high risk. However, even the weekly is still showing that there is, there is a little bit more room up there, right? There is a bit more room up there for that one more leg up before, in my opinion, we may consider, a bit of a deeper and potentially bigger correction. So we'll take it step by step, day by day, and even week by week, really. But the point I'm trying to make here is the fact that despite this being frothy territory, this little sideways correction is leaving room up to the upside that would make this upside move, if it actually does occur, off this rising triangle pattern. That's a bullish pattern, digestible and realistic, I guess, without it seeming just stupid, I guess. I don't know what word to use here, but you get my point. Now, I want to talk about the broader market very briefly. The broader market is starting to show me a little bit of signs of, hey, maybe it's worth getting a little bit, on the more cautious end. Now, that's not to say that we have to crash. It's not to say that, we can't go up even a little bit higher from here. But again, just strictly looking at my market, the bands rather, right? The SPY, you can see here on the daily chart, my divergence indicator is starting to show some signs, right? Usually when it shows these divergence signs, it's, getting at or getting close to what could be at least a temporary top before, cool off, of course, right? Which is perfectly normal. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. RSI is very overbought and stochastic is overbought, right? And my bands are again at the second tier overbought territory on the daily, but the 4 hour, you can see we're starting to approach the extreme levels on the SPY, and QQQ is even higher. Actually, QQQ played catch up to SPY, which was a nice sign to see. I like that. QQQ looking pretty strong, but a small cool off, nothing crazy, but a small cool off can be in the cards here. I don't know when it'll happen. I'm not trying to time the top or time the market or anything like that. I don't know, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, no idea. But when I see these kind of things, again, just zooming out, right? Just taking a zoom out every time the QQQ has reached into these elevated territories, what has happened not too long after. This one, not really so much, but over here, for instance, right? It has cooled off. It has cooled off. Not always a massive correction. Like, I'm not saying it'll be something like this. I mean, it could be. I'm not saying it is going to be, though. But the point is the fact that, it has had slight cool offs, or at the very least, some sideways price action, followed up not too long after. And these are the signs that are making me a little bit more on the cautious end as well when it comes to Tesla. Whether or not Tesla will follow the market is a different question. But, when I see these kind of things, I'm starting to get a little bit on the more cautious end, right? I'm getting a little bit more cautious. I'm getting, I'm starting to think to myself, all right, well, I'm getting a little frothy here. We're getting a little bit overextended here short term. Wouldn't be surprised to see at the very least some sideways correction, if you will, some sideways price action, or literally just a small, correction to the downside, little small cool off before probably honestly continuing even higher well into end of December, in my opinion, because the market still looks bullish. Anyone that looks at this market and tells you it's bearish has no idea what they're talking about. The market is bullish. The market is bullish. There's no question about that. The market is making higher highs. Both SPY and QQQ are making higher highs. Yes, it is overbought. Yes, it can cool off, but a lot of people, like what I tell you right now, if this market, let's say it cools off down here like this, so the market buys on the 4 hour chart. Let's just say that does happen. Let's just use that as an example, for instance, right? This would be what? Let's say we correct 2-3% on the market, something like that over the next week, let's say. The bears will be coming out pretty aggressively. You already know the bears will be coming out. They'll be screaming market crash, when in fact all it's going to be doing is probably just setting a fresh higher low, right? Because we're just setting higher highs and higher lows across the market, looking very powerful. And until we set really a fresh lower low in the market, I see no reason to be ultimately overall bearish. So yeah, again, the market looks great. Short term though, a little bit frothy. Could see a bit of a sideways correction or even a small pullback, maybe 2-3% or so. Nothing major. But yeah, I think the market ultimately still looks pretty solid despite that short-term potential. So yeah, if we do get that correction, that could be what takes Tesla down to low to mid 340s. That could be a potential still, which is why I'm not calling victory just yet for the bulls here, despite I think the bulls will probably win in the end. But nonetheless, that's all I got for you. Let me know what you think down below. Options flow very quickly before I forget. Pretty mixed, but bulls definitely still absolutely taking the upper hand here. A lot of calls coming in for Tesla stock. No question about that. 1.1 million, 1.8 million, 1.3 million in calls, 1.2 million in puts. Can't write off that entirely. But the point is the fact that 2 million in puts actually too. For interesting, this came in when Tesla was at 351.35. Okay, I mean, we're that decently higher than that. A 2 million put when Tesla was at 351.35 for December 20th, which is what, 2 weeks out. 360 strike in the money. Okay, well, either this whale is holding on and they know something we don't, or they're pretty much losing. We'll see. This is why I don't follow options personally that much. I like to look at the charts. To me, the charts tell the story. But yeah, anyway, that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow.